Hey, hi, I'm so glad you came today, and I think you'll enjoy this visit here to our museum that really kind of celebrates everything that we have accomplished with Luhr Jensen and Sons. My name is Phil Jensen. I'm the third and youngest son of my father, Luhr Jensen Sr., and my mother, Clarice. I'd like to tell you a little bit of story about the early beginnings of Luhr Jensen and Sons. It all started with my father. Back in the Depression, it was a hard time for him. He lost a job at the D mill. He couldn't sell the fruit that he had grown on his little 10-acre farm.
This, as you already know, is Mr. Luhr Jensen Sr., the founder of the company. Luhr, what do you have to say?
Fishing!
Certainly a phrase familiar to fishermen throughout the area.
Well, there's thousands of them that heard me say that, Bill.
You bet they have. Tell us how you got started here, will you, Luhr?
Well, sir, you know, I was living up on D flat, and I wasn't making hardly any money. Not enough to eat on, and not enough to buy spinners. So I decided to make my own, and I made them a little better than the other fellow. And the Friends Hardware down in Hood River, they wanted to buy them. And Stadelman Bond up in the Dalles, they wanted to buy them. The jobber salesmen coming through saw them in those two stores. They told the buyers in Portland they wanted them, and I was in business.
Before long, you really were.
He just a little bit later moved to the town, the big city of Hood River, of course, and with the money that was loaned to him by the jobber, the distributor in Portland, he built a small factory and employed a few people, and in the late 30s, invented a few spinners. Father sometimes will get his materials from old car parts. He designed and built from, I think it was from a silvered reflector from a car headlight. He designed what soon became called the Ford Fender, which was a very popular lure, still is popular today for that matter.
We developed the Ford Fender many years ago. At that time, it was the most popular Ford troll, lake troll for catching trout that was ever developed, and it still is. Our sales of that are tremendous today.
Certainly, this is an unusual name to say the least. How did you arrive at it?
I had it down when I first developed. I had it down to J.E. Hazeltine Company down in Portland, and I was showing it to the buyer down there, and he said, "What are you going to call it, Lear?" And I said, "I don't know." Well, there's a couple of fishermen standing there, and one of them, he said, well, he poked his nose up like this, you know, and he said, "It looks like a Ford Fender to me." I said, "Brother, you've named it."
That was one of the most early successes, and that's what kind of maybe put the legs on the company and got established a reputation all over the West. I think one of the keys to my father's success, early success, was his ability to craft fine things. He was also a rock hound, amateur rock hound, and he made beautiful jewelry out of local agates that he found. He collected arrowheads, he collected Indian artifacts. He was a very fine craftsman. And at the time when he started to make the spinners, I think that attention to detail carried itself over into the product he made. The company was shut down in 1941 for lack of materials, but as soon as the war was over and my father had built this building that you see right here today that we're in, he started it up, and the times are good right after the war, and he started up with gusto, and a lot of things have happened very positively with our company since then.
Well, after the war was over, we took on where we had left off and built a new building in our present location.
Been a number of expansions since then, right?
Yes, we have built 2 new buildings since that time.
Now, where do you get the ideas for these lures?
Well, fishermen keep continually sending in new ideas, and we're trying to develop new ideas all the time ourselves, developing new lures, taking them out and trying them, find the one that catches fish.
There was a college professor from one of the universities in Michigan decided he could take some salmon that were little spawning salmon from the Bonneville Fish Hatchery and take them back and plant them in Lake Michigan. And he was very, very successful with that, and that created really a boom in salmon fishing in Lake Michigan, which Luhr Jensen and Sons was very well known for, and we prospered because of it. The people came to us to find the salmon lures they thought they needed to do a good job. So that was a very prosperous time for us also, a period of good growth, and it enabled us to go into the Midwest and become a part of that fishery in the Great Lakes. I think the most popular lure for salmon fishing was what you call the J-plug. It was simply a plug that was it was modeled very much after the Lucky Louie, which many of you are probably familiar with. And that plug was very successful. I think we actually sold, I would say, millions of those plugs in the Great Lakes, and it kind of sponsored, you might say, another period of dramatic growth for Luhr Jensen and Sons. And then we continued to grow on the East Coast, buying many companies on the East Coast that were popular companies. They might have been smaller companies at the time, but they were significant in that marketplace. Enabled us to make contact with the good distributors back there and bring our full product line into play and into their catalogs that they distribute throughout the East Coast and down into the South. So it's a successful time for the start of a company, the growth of a legend. I like to call it the legends of Luhr Jensen. Just like all the people that work for us are legends, just like the companies we bought are legends. And it was a great time to begin a company, and through the 50s and 60s and 70s, a great time to grow a company. And that's the story I want to tell you today.